Well, the thing with this is the title of the album, Every Picture Tells a Story, that was the title song. And one day I was fiddling around doing something, and this song stuck in my head from years ago. And I got to thinking about that. That might make a good title for a clinic. So I made a PowerPoint and put that title on. Eventually, I found the album cover to put on it. And then I was just looking for a clinic to go with it. Whoops. Probably up here when I do. Anyway, good Lord. I'm going the wrong way. Help, help. That's what I get for talking with my hands. And here a couple of weeks ago, well, it's been a month ago now, there's a group in La Crosse, Wisconsin, the River Rail Bunch. You guys may have heard of them. They're heavy duty operator types. And I've been over to River Rail a few times. Well, it's a weekend thing where you, God damn it again, where you operate on 4 layouts in a weekend. It's I call Optia drop.
Yeah, right.
And anyway, they wanted me, being they're all into larger layouts to have some type of train control, run a lot of trains. Nobody there has the layout, small layout, especially a branch line stub end. And the guy that was the host of that, Greg Scott Park, he asked me to do one on how my branch line operates because they're in operations. Then he also wanted to know about my roster, what cars that I have for that branch line. So this is kind of a two-parter. First, I'll go through an operating session, and then I'll talk about what cars you should have on this branch, or any railroad for that matter. So let me see if I can get one at a time. Okay, so these guys are all macro people. Their operations are based on train movements, where I'm a micro person because my operation is based on car movement. This is the railroad that I had previous to the one I have now. This was a single town, the town that I live in, one railroad in that town. And we had usually run 2 switch jobs, 2 3-man crews. You had an engineer, a ground man that would trip the pins and the switches, and then a foreman that kept track of the switch list. So switch lists on this railroad. Okay, here's a photo of part of the railroad. Ron was here once and operated on the railroad with some friends. I don't know if any of the other guys on this group were along with him on that trip or not. In the meantime, I had gone down to West Omaha, down at Omaha. They have an operating weekend. And I had the chance 3 times to run on Charlie Dover's branch. And that is really, at the time I'm thinking, gosh, if I didn't have the railroad I have now, I'd have one of these. And what I learned from Charlie's is that when you have a stub-ended branch, there's usually no room at the end of the line for any extra cars. You can, or you might have to work it down both coming or going. And the only cars for the branch are cars that are supposed to be on the branch, unless there's an interchange somewhere. When we moved into this house, not toward the other way down, I thought about modeling the Hampton branch. I know it ended at Denhart at the time I would have modeled. And I had a lot of information on that line. A couple of guys that actually operated that line. But then back to the picture tells the story. in Northwestern Historical Society's Northwestern lines, and also in classic trains. Bill Armstrong had articles on the Story City branch with photos that he took there, like during World War II and afterward. Still in steam days, the photos I've seen. And this photo with that track up on a, really, I really liked it. I thought this is really neat. I got, so I was planning putting that in the hamper, and I thought, well, that I can't do. So I decided, why not just model this Story City branch, which is about 60, 70 miles down the main line from where Hammond is. So this is a map from that article. Shows the line. They come to Marshalltown Yard on the main line, then get off at Minerva Junction, follow Minerva Creek, up through a bunch of little burrs, and then change over to Middle Minerva Creek, up to Ziering. Then at Ziering, they get up more up out of the Outer River Valley, and go through McCallsburg, which had an interchange with, but I've talked about this before, didn't model McCallsburg because there's only a house track there, and it would be on the south side of the line. When and my railroad, you're always looking north, so you'd have all the buildings between you and the track. And I had that problem already. I didn't want to compound it. So I did Roland and I did Story City. There's some hint of, in these pictures, tell the story. First towns I modeled was Burnley, which is basically at this time just a spur to a gravel pit, and it's a facing point. So you could not shove cars in there. You had to take them, leave somewhere, and then work the mine on the way back out. And the Ziering was next stop. Here's a chart at the top showing the line where it comes uphill out of the Outer River Valley until the crests at about McCallsburg. But we're coming out of the Minerva River Valley at Ziering. The creek runs just south of the railroad. You can see here the track plan below. This is a shot from of Bill's, and I marked on below where he's standing. And this is on the way out. This is a westbound train. And I don't know if they're going to do any work here, but there's a guy standing beside the engine. Now, whether he's just going to flag the crossing or they're actually going to cut some cars and do some work, I do not know. This is on the way back, same train on the way back. And here for sure, they're shoving cars back to these elevators. So it looks like they may have done their work on the way back, but they couldn't have taken cars with them. So they would have had to set them out first. Then Roland would be the next stop on the road. Roland was the one that caught my eye with that hot track. If you look at the drawing, when you come into town from right to left, there's a facing point switch to a cannery. Then there's a facing point switch that goes up to that stub track on the hump. And then a siding, a house track, so to speak. I wondered, how in the hell did they work this? How did they switch this thing? And I asked Mike Porter, I asked Chet French, I asked Bob Drenth, and they all pretty much gave me the same answer. And this picture shows where that first photo that I showed you, the one that tells the story. I think I'm going to talk about this in a minute, so I'm just going to leave this for now. Last one on the line is, oh, no, wait a minute. This is, I need to talk about now. If you look at this picture, it tells you how they switch stuff on the line. And the depot's that little building behind, but there's a caboose and at least a boxcar. That would have been stuff that they would have brought back with them from Story City. And they're actually spotting cars now at the elevator. And you can see more cars over here on that siding to the right of the track, the main track. So those are cars that are either going to, they've set over there to spot, or they're going to pick up and take with them. So this town was obviously worked on the return trip. Last town is Story City. I put together a map from station maps, kind of condensed it down with all the tracks that were ever there. And I modeled all the tracks that were ever there, even though at the time, toward the end of the line, was trying at Roland in 53 early. And at that time, the only thing left at Story City would have been that one long siding that arrow is pointing to, the switchback track and the siding, the stub track over to the right, where those four stock pens are. That stuff was gone, along with turntable would have been gone too. This picture here threw me for the longest time. You can see back on that long track where the customers are, and the caboose is in the middle of the train. And finally, one day, I figured out what had happened here. There was a Y, once the turntable was retired, there was a Y east of town. They would turn the engine on the Y and push the train back into town. They would usually shove the train down the main, go in and pick up any cars they had to pick up on that long siding, come back out, couple out of the caboose, and then shove in the cars that need to be spotted, and they were all ready to leave town. So now how I operate the branch. This is the drawing of the road. Pretty much tracks are all the same. I've done a little embellishing on a couple of the customers, but not too bad. Trains blocked with Bromley cars first, even though they can't send them out. And then the empty grain boxes. I've come to the conclusion, talking to real railroaders, that generally grain boxes were just distributed. So if they knew ahead of time which elevators was going to get how many box cars, they just put that many in the train, and the crew would switch them out at their pleasure. Next would be Zeering cars, and then Story City cars. So here's the train leaving Marshalltown, Minerva Junction, going through Bromley. And the train now is pulled into Zeering. And we're gonna pick up some cars. If you look on there's a car to the right by the steel plate sides. There's a couple of cars back by the other elevators, and there's a tank car way back there that you can't see. There's also a tank car on the truck by the Standard Oil dealer that need to be picked up. So here's a list, that distribution for grain cars I was talking about. It's all the elevators are listed, and then how many cars each of them. Well, each elevator would get one car. So there's 3 empty grain boxes, and we're also going to set out a tank car for Sinclair Oil. And the pickups are box here to be picked up and taken back later. What we've done is we've went on that back track. We've scarfed up the cars back there and set them on the front track. And we spotted the tank car and the 3 grain cars at 3 elevators. And now we're ready to leave town. Now we're pulling into Roland. At Roland, we've got that aluminum boxcar sitting there is a LCL car. Generally, railroads would have an LCL car. In this train, we have a caboose that would handle LCL, and they would have just stopped at the station long enough to drop off and pick up whatever they were going to do. But I didn't want to stand around and tap my toes and look and watch. So what I did is took this dedicated car and we just move it from station to station along the railroad. So we're going to pick that car up. They're going to set out what they need to. So here on the left is the car I'm going to pick up. And then they're going to spot, it says at Roland, they're going to leave 1 car for 1 elevator. So we've got an empty grain box to set out. What's interesting here is we have an iced reefer. That reefer is iced in Marshtown. It's going to Hagelin Produce. It's going to be loaded with fresh poultry. And they're going to do that while I've gone over to Story City, and then we'll pick that car up on the way back. And we're also going to spot a hopper of potash at the fertilizer. Here's the pickup box and the respot. Here you can see we've spotted that up there at that white building, and that's the Hagelin. And we've left the boxcar to be spotted over on the track on the right with it, because we're going to pick them both up. And we spotted the hopper at the fertilizer. Now we've coupled on our train and we're ready to go over to Story City. Now when we get to Story City, there's a switchback track. We've got 2 cars up there, and we have to pick those up first. If we don't pick them up and add them to our train, we're really going to get screwed later on. Operators have come to operate the railroad for the first time, and they've decided not to pick those cars up, or to pick them up and then grab the rest of the cars on that long siding, and they spend a lot more time here than they need to. But I have a real conundrum here. I chose this train at random and never paid attention to how I built it, and I'm going to end up with a whole bunch of cars this train. We've got a reefer for the cannery, 2 box cars that are going to go, actually 3 box cars that are going to end up at the elevator to be loaded. We've got a car for the tub, 2 cars for the tub, and a car for the concrete place on the east end of town. So and here's the box, the respots that are in town that are empty, that are going to be respotted, and the cars to be picked up. Now the side runaround track here will hold 6 cars, and we end up with 8. So what I did was left the caboose and 1 car east of town, and then pulled 6 cars down, and then turned the engine. The engine is turned to the town, fictitious town, Marlburg, which is down past that view block in the upper left. And there's a turntable down there. So the engine runs down, gets turned, and then comes back. So now the engine has run around the cars that are here, and it's gone back to that long siding and picked up the 3 cars that were back there. I think 2 are loads and 1 is going to be respotted. Now here they've come out, they've left the 3 cars they're going to pick up, the 2 loaded with grain, the empty tank car, they put those on the main. They sorted out the cars on the siding, and now they're going to shuffle them out where it belongs on that long siding. That gray hopper at the end will go to the cannery, which has the tall smokestack. The 3 box cars will go to the elevator there. That 50-foot car gets spotted a little further along with the gondola. And then that aluminum car goes behind the depot. So now they've done all that. And when he came out of that long siding, he went down and grabbed that last car and caboose and pulled them down onto the passing track. Now what he's done is he's run to the other end of the passing track, ran back up on the main, and shoved those 3 cars that he was to take with him ahead of the siding switch. Then he went back down to the other end of the passing track, came back up, pushed the hopper and the caboose out, and come onto those 3 cars he wants to take with him. Then he pulled those back. He went down to the other end, came back up on the main, coupled onto this whole mess, and now he's pulling them back east. That double door, well, it's only a single door car. It's 1 door is welded shut. Is loaded with tile from the tile company, and they just picked him up. Now they're spotting that hopper to be unloaded there, and then we're ready to leave town. Okay, here we're back at Roland, and we got to take one of these. The top of the hump came in loaded, and now it's empty, and we're going to shove that down to that end elevator. In this picture, we're doing that. We've cut off from the train, and we've shoved that car down, and then we're going to bring that load back, couple under the train. Here at the cannery, which we're going past, there was a load reefer. We picked up that reefer poultry, and we're heading out of town. Back over to Zering, our work gets much easier. All we have to do is cut loose, pull in, back in, grab the 4 cars we're going to take with us, come back out, hook onto our train, and run over to staging, which is Marshalltown. And that is probably the most head scratching I've had to do in Story City in a long time, because I had so many cars. So now we'll look at the freight cars that I have and why I have them. This is the list of customers that were on branch. This list is from 1936, but I looked at centennial books from the 50s, excuse, for all of these customers, and they pretty much stayed the same. So the only cars we need on this line are cars that are either going to go to or from any of these businesses. And I made this up quite some time ago. It shows basically customers that would be on a branch line or a secondary rural main line, and the loads they would get in or take out. And as you can see, the inbound loads are pink, and the majority, almost all of the cars, are inbound loads. There's very few outbound loads. We got the cans, canned goods from the cannery, grain and feed. But I'll bet we're hauling some grain out of here and bringing in not near as much goods into town, but our outbound load probably past our inbound loads. So I'll start with the cars and work taller. Flat cars would bring in to all 3 towns, could bring in poles to Zering, loading platforms there was an unloading platform at Zering and Story City, rough lumber, I said all 3 towns. And down bottom are 4 cars that I own. This is my last layout. This is Owl Mountain rough lumber load, really nice kit. I highly recommend it. But with the small demand of these small communities, I took that big load and cut it into 4 pieces and sold 2 and kept 2. Here's a pole load on my old railroad again, on Bowser NZ F30. I had space at Zing to put a pole yard, because there was on the Centennial businesses that showed a presence by the local utility company. So I made a pole yard here. At the right are some transformers and some real wire, just to give the idea. And I had that stiffling, so might as well. The other load would have been farm for it to be unloaded at the implement platforms. Now this car is, again, on my old layout. These are tractors from a Sunshine kit. And you have to be nuts to buy the kit, and you have to be certified after you put the damn things together. It's insane. But anyway, what I had done here is the blocking comes with the in the kit, which is probably the best part of the kit. Anyway, so I glued the blocking to the flat car bed. Flat car bed is not screwed to the flat car. I have an empty bed that I can replace, swap out when the car has been unloaded. Then it's still on my old railroad. I got this Chad Boaz resin kit. A lot of Seaboard 47,000 series cars shows up on lists I have, and I have photos of them. So what I did here is I actually glued just the blocking down on the deck, and the tractors are held down by wire going through stake pockets. And then the tractor can be, but the blocking stays. If you look at the prototype photo at the bottom, in Marshall by Jim Sands, you can see a Great Western articulated flat that they left the blocking on. I have a real problem with building things, selling, buying more, selling. So I have top photo is a Sunshine resin kit of a Northwestern flat car with a load glued onto it. That was all sold. Later on, I got a deal on a red Moose Northwestern flat car that I had to redo, make it more accurate, the Northwestern. And these tractors are, the chocks are glued to the tractor wheels instead of the tractors. I no longer have a flat car either. But as you can see here, the tractors lift off and the chock is supposed to stay with them. The chock is made out of straps from a laser cut depot kit that I built for someone, and more of a pain in the ass than just using the cast resin ones. Machinery could come in, could be company material, tarped it so it'd keep it out of the weather. Next bigger car would be gondola. Everybody gets coal in gondolas. Comes out of north west Illinois. Pipe, culverts, lumber, rough lumber again, machinery, you name it, what can go into a gondola. I have quite a few gondolas. They're all listed below. Most of them I tried to keep with railroads that were in the northern Illinois area, or big railroads. Because they always say if you model anybody, you model the Pensy, because their car feet are so large. So the top car is Westerfield with a coal load. The car is Sunshine. The pipe in that car, last January down at Cocoa Beach, having lunch out at the Tiki Bar, I ordered iced tea, and the lady brought the iced tea with and handed me a paper straw. I took a look at the straw, black straw with the spiral wrapping, and I thought that looks just like black pipe that has a steel band welded around the outside of it for reinforcing. Next time she came, I asked her for a handful. So I brought them home, cut the length, and made a removable load out of them. This car here I have just because I like it. You got to have cars that you like. I bought one of these several years ago, built it. I really had no use for it, so I sold it. And then I wanted it so bad, I bought another one. This is a Jerry Hamsmith model. Those of you that go to Naperville, Lyle, Chicagoland, whatever you want to call it, would probably have seen his Burlington clinics. This car was given to me by John Golden. There's probably 3 reasons why he would have given it to me. One, because he's generous, but I crossed that one off. 2 was because the detail was molded onto the resin kit, which is really unusual. And I didn't cut it off, I was lazy. And 3rd is that the sides were warped. And when you're a gondola, even a composite gondola, having warped sides fit right in. And my wife said, yeah, because you're warped. Tank cars, they would go to the oil companies. At Zuring, there were 3 at Roland, and Story City either had a standard or a DX. I've just sold off both of my DX tank cars. So just before we went on air, I tore the DX dealer out of Story City. So there's no longer an oil dealer there unless I decide to put a standard oil dealer there. But you can see I've got a lot of tank cars. But my problem is most of the tank cars, I've got Southern Car and Foundry and Tangent tank cars that are all General American design. What I need for these standard oil dealers are more Union tank cars. And nobody makes it. They make resin kit, but I've never bought one. So I need to come up with more Union tank cars. This one here, a friend of ours passed away, and this is a roundhouse old timers kit that I went in Shapeways and bought a new center beam for it, much finer than crap that comes in the roundhouse kit. They also are supposed to sell a walkway to go around it, but I couldn't find it. I don't know how many of you have looked at Shapeways site, but it's not easy to find stuff. So I made one out of styrene, and the steps are left from Southern Foundry kits. This is another one that everyone's got a story, all the pictures. And when Tangent came out with their St. Clair car, I had not built Ziering yet. I knew there were 3 oil dealers there, but I never paid attention to what they were. So when I get Ziering built, I said I need a St. Clair tank car, and there's none to be had. They've all been sold out. But I happen to know a guy that works for Tangent, and he had an undecorated kit. He built it and gave it to me, which is a really good, nice person. And I bought Black Cat decals and paint and finish the car. This is just a standard Proto 2000. I think it was their saver kit. They make them. Walther still sells this to run. But what's interesting here, the story with this picture is that Mobile Dealer must have been the last guy of the 3 in town. And when they built their facility, it's not on a track where they could unload it. So they had to put a pipe through the rails and their loading device or unloading device on the north side of the north track. And that's the way it was really done. So they were spotted quite a ways away from their facility. Not uncommon. Here's those 2 DX cars that are no longer with us, and that standpipe has been moved. Open hoppers, coal for the 2 canneries, and aggregate that would come out of Bromley and go to Story City. This is a Resin Car Works kit. Illinois Central cars were really a strange design. And China had made it years ago, and Frank Odina came out, because he had done the Masters. He came back with the car recently with molded on grass. And for hopper cars, I'll take that. This is a car a kit from my friend Stan Rydarowitz. He had the side of an Athens car laser cut out, and then you could put these panels over the holes. These cars were done to give more feet space to the cars. This is a Intermountain ready to run car that I changed the trucks and the brake wheel on, make them appropriate, and it's come out of Bromley, and it's set up over at the concrete dealer. Covered hoppers, not much use of them. Just my fake fertilizer dealer, and then the Jensen concrete people. This car here is a Bowser kit. I think this one here that I painted in leather, but I did it for the 7101 series cars. If you notice, the roof hatches are evenly spaced. They're not offset like the two to the center, two further out, like normal hopper cars. I've since sold this car and was given an Intermountain car, which is a much nicer model. This car was given to me also. The reason that car and the next car are the reason I turned this elevator into a fertilizer dealer, but there's a story for that too. But it's bringing in phosphate from Florida, really common upper Midwest. Here, this is one of the Atherton cars, much nicer than the Bowser car. This one is given to me also, potash car. Refrigerator cars, they're all going to go, except for the ones that go to Hagel and Produce, they're going to go to the canneries to haul cans. They like to use refrigerator cars because it kept the cars from getting too hot or too cold. Later on, they would use RBL cars. I made this up from Waybills coming into the Giant plant in Wattville, Minnesota, Watttown, Minnesota, which is used to be out west on the Minnesota and Western, but now it's probably well in town as a small suburb. And what it shows here is what that cannery would get in. You can see there's lots of cars of cans, salt, sugar, boxes, lots of coal, and I'm not sure how this relates to how many carloads out, but I did find this information that I put down on the bottom. There's 950 cases of 24 count. There were 22,800 cans in a car, but we have no idea how many cans are in those bags, cans that come in a Mankato or Milwaukee. Here are these cars at the cannery Story City. The MDT car is an upgraded rail car with the roof of a frame miniature car, more accurate. The Union refrigerator car is a Sunshine Kit. There's another car that Stan Rydarowitz built, kit bashed. He built one for me and one for my friend Mike Moore that just passed away. I painted mine for the MSCL and Mike's for the Great Western. They both had these particular cars. I think he used parts from a Mantua Heavy and a Red Caboose X29, and then a lot of other parts. I know the door and hardware and everything is from Grant Line. Box cars, they go everywhere. I've got records, state records from two towns, one up on the secondary line going west out of the cities, and one down on the secondary line coming into Des Moines. So I figured they were, 250 miles or so apart. It's interesting to see the difference in what came and went from those towns in that different territory. This list here, the blue is the Dallas Center, which is the Iowa town, and red is the Minnesota town. You can see that with more feet coming into the Iowa town, building and miscellaneous loads were about the same. A lot more grain being shipped out of Minnesota and coal out of Minnesota coming into Fairfax, because the coal there would have come from the twin ports of Superior and it would have come in box cars. So you have a lot more car loads, box cars, not gondolas or hoppers. This is the product shipped out. I swapped the colors out here, but the reason there were more grain shipments out of Fairfax, as you can see, ship more products. Evidently, the climate up there allowed them to grow more products than they did in Iowa. Iowa was basically corn, beans, and oats, where you got a lot more exotic stuff like barley, rye, and flax up in Minnesota. Just for some mental masturbation, I divided the nation up into 4 sections, and then look at cars from boxcars from those different areas from those 2 lists, and then what cars I have myself. And as you can see, the Northeast pretty much has 2-to-1 boxcars to the other 3 sections. So your layout should reflect that, but mine really doesn't. Mine is overloaded with Western cars simply because I have so many home road cars. Here's boxcars from fleet, Southern boxcar Southeast in the southeast corner, or in the lower right. Upper right is the Northeast, Southwest in the lower left, and West in the upper left. They got so many boxcars, you can see all the home road cars. These would be more upper Midwest cars. Cars, if you're modeling a steam diesel area up until 60, maybe 2 cars that you have to have. You see them all the time in photographs, movies, is a wagon boxcar and the ribside boxcar. See them at least one in every train. Now I've taken some of the Bill Armstrong photos here and tried to pick out some cars and make sure I had them on the layout. Here's first car behind the engine is the X31. Mine's an upgraded Bauer, but Peter's coming up with a really good model of this car. The second car fooled me for a long time, that little wooden hopper. And come to find out, it's a D&H Sealy hopper. What the hell it's doing in Iowa, I don't know. But F&C sells it, so I bought one, built it here for the winter. Top picture, M&L 24,000 series car behind the engine. These were made by Sunshine. A friend of mine had one of the casting gurus cast off of his kits parts, and then he sold them to friends for just what it cost to have him cast. So I bought 2 and built them. Here's 2 other home road cars. The one right behind the engine is the one. That's a 36-foot truss rod car. That car was bought used. They bought a whole bunch of cars just prior to World War II used. I picked that up at a train show of $2. It's a roundhouse old timers get that I extensively overhauled as I'm changing this thing, almost everything on this car. I'm wondering why did I bother, but it actually is not a bad car. These cars came with 3 different ends. The one I chose has a wood end with the I-beam center posts. The 4 cars were bought new way back in 1920 or 19. Fowler clone as Westfield car. One car that could have easily went in that unique car that you have to have is the Penske X29. I put it here because there's a photo one in the train. Of course there is. There really is a these cars. Behind the engine here is one of those used box cars the M&L would have got. They're USRA double sheath cars. My kit is Westerfield. In this photo, behind the engine, we have USRA single sheath car. We also have a USRA gondola. I'll talk about that in a minute. But this is a Tichy kit of the USRA gondola boxcar. And here's the hopper car, or the gondola that you can see in the top photo being shoved in or picked up by the other at Story City. That house, the White House across the street, is still there. I've been down there, and so I saw from that house, so I knew where the depot was. Right now, that's all just grassland where the railroad was. My adult car is a Proto 1000 kit. Mountain makes his car too, but I don't care for theirs. I prefer this one, and I've just changed out the grab irons on the side of the car, left the ends molded up. This top photograph is taken Y east of Story City. You see them running. They cut off their train, backing down the Y, and they're going to come around and shove it in backwards. The first car is a single sheath car, not a true USRA car because it has different ends. The box car is a M&L USRA double sheath, but the car in the middle is a New York Central car. And when I was putting this original thing together for just the car roster from last January's Cocoa Beach, I noticed that car. I thought that's a neat car. And at the time I'm doing all this, I'm talking with Bob Gretlin, who's on this group, and he said he was about to build a Sunshine Kit, a gondola. And I said, I sent him this picture. Is it this car? He said, yeah. I said, I'll buy it from you. So I was able to get that car that I didn't think I'd be able to find. What I did on the side of the car, I think that the tunnel was distressed, is I took Prismacolor pencils. A lighter one, it kind of scuffed along the top, and a darker one along the bottom to make it look like the panel might be pushed a little bit. As you can see in this train, we're getting newer box cars, all 10 steel cars. Has gone on railroading, time to quit. But anyway, my car is, this is a kit bash. It's a Northwestern riveted PS1. It's Intermountain 10'6" 7 car with Intermountain PS1 roof and ends. Door too. I sold that, but I'm gonna buy another one, build another one. And this is a war emergency car, which I don't have any at this time. Taken it at McCallsburg. And one thing about building McCallsburg would be to build that really cool coal dealer in the background. But that's, I can just see that trolley getting busted off when somebody reaches over to uncouple a car. And that's the end of the show. So I will stop sharing the screen.
Very good. Thanks, Clark.
You're welcome. I just got to figure out how to get the hell out of here. And unshare.
Let's see here.
I'll get rid of that. And, there should be some. I got something popping up at the top. To share, resume share.
Just hit stop share.
There's the stop share. Got it. I'm done. Thank you.
All right.
Are there any questions or not?
Yeah, I've muted a lot of you during the presentation so we could hear Clark. So go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question or a comment. Thanks, Clark. That's a great presentation. Where'd you get all that data on that you use?
A lot of that came off of people from what was then the MCNL Yahoo group, which is now an IO list. But guys happened to find for that Fairfax, Minnesota, you got the seal book that the dispatcher had for 2 years. And it lists every car that he would have broken or sealed, what was in it, where it came from. And the one that I don't know if Doug Harding's on tonight.
I am.
One, yeah, he's the one that I got the information from Dallas Center. Wow.
Yes, and that book came from Vaughn Ward's collection.
Okay.
So,
and
I
there's
have a
more.
question.
There's more lists out there. You know, you can get them for other railroads. If you like steam freight cars, well, it's, I don't know what their name is now, but it used to be steam freight cars, Yahoo groups. Now it's an IO group, but their files, there's lots of different railroads listed. UP, I know, Southern, something else. I've taken the list down off of Jason Clockey models, Great Western at 65, and he has train list for every train that went out of Owine, Iowa, for May of 1965. And we're helping him transcribe all of those into spreadsheets. It's
Yeah.
kind of a monumental task. We're up to several thousand cars, but
Wow.
that's how he bases his railroad, is he doesn't go to the extreme of numbers, but if he looks and sees, well, there's a B&M car in here, so I can buy a B&M car,
Right.
and that's the way he looks at it.
Cool.
I have a question, Clark.
Yeah,
Going back to an early shot, you had a list of commodities coming in and out on the branch. And you said there was very little going out, but I did not see anything from the produce dealer in Roland. Didn't they pack chickens and ship them out?
yeah, that was in the bottom list. It was only a one that was painted. I can send you that list if you want it.
Oh, I'd like to see it. Yeah. So
Yeah. Okay.
How many tank car dealers did you have?
They're on the railroad for sure that I know about. There's 4. Well, there's 3 in Zeering, 1 in Roland, and on that old list from 1936, which I also got from Doug, that lists a Standard Oil dealer, but I haven't found anything out. None of the information I found out about the track arrangement, the customers at on the line there at Story City shows that Standard Oil dealer. Oh, I had left it off, but there was also a DX dealer because I had those DX cars. I put the DX dealer on the list, but I just sold those 2 cars, so he's gone now. So I may bring in a Standard Oil dealer, but that's going to require me getting more Union tank cars because Standard Oil shipped everything in the Union tank car fleet. That was theirs.
Right. I've got like 56 tank cars of all different flavors
Yeah, they're
and a couple DX as well.
yeah. I think I built a double dome car and a Tangent offered a triple dome car, and I've got another one I built that was a single dome car, but they made it with 3 compartment, so the center dome is bigger than the 2 end domes.
Oh, okay.
Because it was the original dome that would hold the capacity for the entire car. But when they put the 2 tanks in the ends, they didn't need as big a domes.
Right.
That's the cool car. But again, not a Union tank car. Everything's all the models. Usually the Southern Car and Foundry cars that I built and the Tangent cars are all General American designs. I think Lester knows more about tank cars than I do.
I can address the petroleum shipments because the M&L was a north-south railroad, and those, you mentioned the Dallas Center records I have. I also have a similar book with the Minburn town, which is just adjacent to Dallas Center. A lot of petroleum coming up out of Oklahoma and Kansas on the M&L. Not quite sure where it got to the M&L, but M&L was then moving that oil north. There's photos of whole train loads of oil, of tank cars at Albert Lee heading up into the Twin Cities and the Twin Ports at Superior.
I wonder if the Great Western brought it to Marshalltown from Kansas City, maybe.
Could be. I know that the Sanborn maps just show a large proportion of oil jobbers on M&L tracks, even in towns where there were other railroads, east-west roads. Most of the oil jobbers were on the north-south M&L because the oil was coming up out of the lower, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas regions. So, yeah. And you're right, we need more of those Union tank cars.
Well, the Dave Lubach of Tangent, a few years ago, back down at Cocoa Beach, he pulled me aside and he asked me, because he was only building more modern cars, and he asked me, "What do you guys, older guys, want for a car?" And I said, a Union Tank Car X3. You know, there's thousands of them. All you have to do is putting different numbers on them and selling them. There's a black car, yellow lettering, put a different number on, sell the damn things. But he
Yeah.
ended up choosing going with the General American designs instead. He just come out with a new one, an 8,000 gallon jacketed car.
Yep.
I thought about buying that, but I bought too much stuff here recently to go for another tank car. It's pretty, it's silver, you know, flash sells. That's why I've got to sell stuff off to pay for the habit.
You got to build a lot of resin X3s.
You build the X3s. I made them, right? I built the Southern Card Foundries. They're not too bad.
I think I've got one or two in my stash somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
I stay away from tank cars and hoppers especially, but I have built a couple of one piece, now coming out with one piece bodies. That makes a big difference.
That's
Well,
right.
you have not much different than a plastic car.
Well, thanks again, Clark. Thanks everybody for joining us. And we don't have anything
Thank you.
scheduled next week yet, but I think maybe Rich will get you going for that. We'll see. I'll let everybody know, and I'll get this recording out probably sometime tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Are
you, Greg. Thank you, Clark.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You're gonna put them up for everybody now,
Yeah.
for general public? All right,
Yeah.
thanks. Appreciate
All right.
that.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
yeah, goodbye.